right, I'm going to invite you to sit back down now that you've all greeted your neighbors and exchanged contact emergency information. This reading comes to us from Rebecca Parker. It's called Choose to Bless the World. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or to curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, to do the work of justice or to offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, numbness, or evil that moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting, that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith. The life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting.
May the choice to bless the world take us into solitude, into darkness, into a shared silence. More or enough or too much, Spirit of life and source of love, may the choice to bless the world draw us into community. Here in this sacred hour, may we be reminded of all of life's gifts. May we awaken to gratitude. I offer here a prayer for drag, for hope, for joy, for celebration, for resistance. May everyone who woke up this morning afraid or worried know that they are not alone. Not every fear is unfounded, but nor is hope. There is no one way to do drag, no singular other to be isolated and then crossed over into, no one way to try on another gender or don the colorful costumes of your other self. May all of us put on our ordinary clothes as a flag for liberation, as a call to joy. Oh, this sweater, this old thing, let it be glittery. Oh, these shoes, these flat ones, they bring me power and strength. May my face be made up of all that brings joy, that helps me to show my best self to the world. May all who know peace, who know what home feels like, who knows a sigh of relief at suddenly having been seen for who we are, if not fully in our multitudes, always in this moment, loved and held. May those who know this circle open the doors to others. This is a prayer for drag, for resistance, for celebration, for hope, for joy. May we know it in our bones, and may we wear it proudly. Amen.
We enter now into ritual to bring what is on our hearts and lay it on the altar of community and spirit. Honoring the complexities of life, I invite you to bring to mind whatever grief or growth or gratitude is alive within you this morning. Online, you are invited to share that in the chat, and here in the sanctuary, you are invited forward to light a candle. If you would like an usher to bring you a candle, please simply raise your hand. May we now share in this ritual of community, care, and witness to one another's lives. all that we hold in our hearts for ourselves, for each other, and for the world is held in this community and by a larger love that will not let us go. Amen. Blessed be.
I don't know who it came from, but I remember the call. This isn't a weird Unitarian Universalist minister's call to ministry where my relationship with God or the divine is unclear, but I know what I want to do. It's not the call to ministry, not the call to Unitarian Universalism, not the call that I feel when I get a little twitch when I look out at all of your faces and think, yes, this is what church is. No, it was a call a couple of years ago, but in the context of COVID, and that'll become clear somewhat soon, that said there's a tree in the middle of where the kids are supposed to play. Someone was panicked that a tree had been planted right where our children had been worshiping on Sunday mornings outside. And it was a stressful time. And so I didn't want this tree either in the middle of where the kids were supposed to be. And shouldn't we talk to each other? And so I called up Megan Meyer, who's sitting here, and said, Megan, why is there a tree in the middle of where the kids play? And Megan said, did you go out and look at it? It's not where the kids play. It's right next to it. It'll make shade and fruit. It's really nice. It's not going to ruin anything. And I went out and I looked at it, and it turns out Megan was right, and that was a good lesson for me to maybe not just transmit the anxiety that someone plopped into my plate onto someone else immediately before checking out the truth. But more than anything, at that time, it was a good reminder to go outside. There would always be work to do, another email, another hour that one could spend at the computer, but to go outside and check it out for myself was a good reminder. Thank you, Megan, for so many reasons. It was a serviceberry tree, a tree that would grow to provide not only shade, but also fruit, not only for me or children or you, but also birds. A tree that sees itself in relationship with this land, not just because it declared so, but because this parcel of this earth welcomes it and nourishes it in an ecosystem of birds and bees and people that love it. I didn't know about serviceberries until moving to the Northeast, and I didn't know about serviceberries in part because they're a relatively humble tree, not too tall, their berries quite small, and well, this particular tree, it's got a lot of names. It's hard to keep track of. Robin Wall Kimmerer, the author and ecologist, she tells us that the plants with the most number of names are the plants with the most importance to the most number of people. And indeed, the serviceberry, depending on where you are, it goes by Saskatoon, Juneberry, Shadbush, Shadblow, Sugar Plum. My favorite catalog version, though it's not a native, is Autumn Brilliance. That sounds fancy. It also goes by Sugar Plum and Sarvis. The serviceberry is a many-splendored fruit. And they grow not only here on this particular piece of land, but close to my home, on the grounds of the Memorial Art Gallery. I discovered this while walking through the grounds one day, and a berry literally hit me in the face. A child threw it at me, which I guess is maybe a challenge of putting it close to where our children are on Sunday mornings. But, well, in this particular case, it was a gift because it was the first time I had tried a serviceberry in season. How many of you have had one of these? Relatively few. And I'm looking around, and some of you are like real foodies or nature freaks, and that makes sense. This is an untold secret, but we will have one here ready to bear fruit in just a few years. But on the Memorial Art Gallery, I share my secret with all of you. There is one already bearing fruit. I haven't always been this generous. A week after this berry hit me right in the forehead, and because I am who I am, I picked it up off the ground and put it in my mouth and discovered a true delight. A week after that, a new housemate moved into my home. My wife and I, we bought this house with 5 bedrooms and only 2 of us because we had a dream of filling it with people who needed housing, people we might want to get to know, to make community with. And then a week later, COVID hit, and that scattered our plans. But after a while, we became more comfortable and more able to welcome in a new housemate. And so our housemate moved in, and I told them I would show them the grounds of the Memorial Art Gallery, but I knew in my heart that I would not show them the serviceberry. Because these berries are so good. And that kid who threw a berry at me didn't know how delicious it was, or he wouldn't have done it. He would have eaten it himself. And so we set off, and I resolved to not say anything about these delicious berries. And as we came across it, I could see these clusters of berries glistening in the sun. And, well, I remember that call too. It wasn't kind or gentle. It was a booming voice in my heart that said, "Shari, don't be a jerk. There are berries enough for you both." And so I said, "Hey, do you want to try something?" Partially knowing that we just met each other and there was no way this person who was a relative stranger to me was going to eat this fruit off the museum grounds. But they said, "Sure, I'd like to try," trusting foolishly in this relative stranger that the gift that I had to give would be beneficial, benevolent, maybe even delicious. And they loved it. My fear that there would not be enough to go around was not only scattered in that moment, but the joy of their joy filled my heart. I ate berries and they ate berries, and the two of us for about 15 minutes ate berries while my wife stood far enough away to pretend like she didn't know us. More kids stumbled by, and because I am a full-grown adult, I did not think to plop one of them right into their heads. Instead, I said, "Hey, do you want to try these?" Which isn't like an awesome thing to do to children you don't know. And so I turned to the adults with them and said, "Hey, do you want to try these?" They all said no, which feels really reasonable. And fewer people said yes, then said no, but a couple people took us up on it that summer afternoon where we gorged ourselves on berries and still there was enough. Robin Wall Kimmerer uses service berries as a model for how we might think about our economies, for how we might think about our relationships with one another, and from where we derive value and how we share it with the world. Service berries, delicious, small secrets that they are, would die out if they hoarded their berries for themselves. Service berries, like all berries and indeed all fruits, are meant to be attractive to birds and other animals so that they might spread the goodness of life. Service berries offer themselves to birds to show us a model of reciprocity, of being in relationship in which we give of ourselves and indeed also benefit. Kimmerer writes that wealth and security, indeed the ability to be okay, it might come from the quality of our relationships, not from the illusion of self-sufficiency. Without gift relationships with birds and bees, service berries would disappear from the planet. They could not save themselves from the fate of extinction if their partners did not share in that abundance. Hoarding won't save us either. All flourishing is mutual. All flourishing is mutual. The gift of service berries offered to me by the trees themselves, by Megan's gentle insistence that I maybe just try going outside, by that child who knew not what goodness he offered. Those gifts were given to me, and yet hoarding them, not sharing them with my housemate or all of you, or indeed perfect strangers just trying to have a nice walk on the museum grounds, will not save me, would not benefit me. I could not know then what I know now, but a couple months after this experience, my housemate said, "Hey, if you ever need any help around the garden, I'd be happy to help." I had this seed of an idea planted in my head, but a project that I didn't want to take on by myself. I'd become so enamored with service berries that, well, I thought, why not plant some on my own property, on this own little piece of land for which I am a steward? And so my housemate helped me purchase and plant serviceberry strips in what is called the hell serviceberry trees in what I call the hell strip. It is the most Unitarian, Universalist opportunity that I have to talk about urban planning. I really just mean that piece of land, often grass, between the sidewalk and the street that people have, like a serviceberry, all sorts of names for. But like the Universalist I am, I call it a hell strip because I know that it need not be that way. That hell is a thing that we can create for one another, and also that we can save one another from. And so I have gradually been planting my hell strip with plants that others might enjoy and find fruit from. And my housemate helped me that day. The quality of our relationships and our ability to nurture community from our abundance is the practice that we embark on as a community when we talk about stewardship. And for those of you who have been here for a long time, you know that approximately once a year we talk about financial generosity because it's gifts from our congregation, it's contributions from our members and friends that make everything at church possible. And for those of you who are new here, you might get a little twitchy in your seat now because you're realizing this is when church talks about money, and everybody hates that. And I get that. I get that it can be uncomfortable to be asked. I get that it can be uncomfortable to be relied on. I get that it can be awkward to feel like what you have isn't enough. We take our lessons from the serviceberry and from the birds and the bees and the kids and the humans who plant trees and those who eat its fruit. Each of us has a role in this economy. And if we can give from our abundance, knowing that what was given to us, when it moves through us freely with generosity, nourishes others and benefits ourselves also. We take our lesson from the rhythms of nature also here in talking about stewardship at this congregation, in that often people give throughout the year, once a month or once a week, or maybe once a year also. But we really only talk about it in the past once in the spring. And yet we know that generosity and the ways in which we are in relationship with each other, the ways in which we are asked to be grateful for the things given to us, not just money, but time and love and safety and joy and liberation. We know that gratitude for all of those things is something we could talk about more. We know that these seasons move through our year more than once a year. We know that money ripples through our lives in really powerful ways that allow us to lead the lives that we'd like to live. Jenna just told me that she's able to live in an apartment by herself where she gets to say who's there and what happens. It makes her life easier and better to do that. But we also know that money makes our lives complicated, that it challenges our relationships with our parents, our children, our spouses, our churches, ourselves. We know that it's both the source of liberation, the use of and sharing of, and a place for many of us of shame or confusion or guilt. And so we take our lessons from the rhythms of nature, and we've decided to do stewardship a little bit differently now. This month, we will invite all of you to engage in the practice of celebration of this community and gratitude. But we're not going to ask all of you all at the same time to think about how you give to the congregation. We'll ask some of you in the next few weeks. You'll get a mailing and a phone call or a text or an email, and some of you won't. Don't worry, it doesn't mean you don't have a place in this community. Don't worry, it doesn't mean you can't give financially to this church. Don't worry, you have a place here. But We'll ask some of you in the fall and some of you in the spring. We'll take our time with each other, and we'll use 2 chances this year to celebrate with one another, to create the kind of community that we wish to be, to remind ourselves of what is good and powerful about being a people with a purpose. From the abundance of the service berry, may we live. Each and every week, we gather here on Sundays and we engage in a practice of generosity that's a little bit different than how we support the church more broadly, how we pay salaries and do outreach and sustain our whole lives, sexuality education. All of that is a little bit different than what we do on Sunday morning, where we say, oh, right, we have a chance to align our values with being in community, and we practice with our share the plate. And we do that in this community by sharing our abundance with another organization, with another partner doing the work of love and justice in the world. And we invite everyone to give on Sundays, knowing that some of it will come to us and some of it will move through us to someone else. This week, we're doing a partner that's a little bit different. Often we choose partners here in our local community because what they do matters. Their work in community matters deeply. And yet we know that what we do in religious community, what it means to be a place where people can gather and nourish their spirits, matters deeply. And that there are Unitarian Universalists all over the world doing powerful work right now. And so today, we split our plate with another congregation, a sibling from somewhere else, a group of people doing the exact same thing we are doing right now and saying Unitarian Universalism can be a home for you. Unitarian Universalism wants to make the world better. Over the past few months, I have woken up, like many of you, each and every day, knowing that another bill, because there have been hundreds in the 100 or so days of this year, hundreds introduced to limit the freedom and loving quality of life for trans and queer people. And the community partner, the Unitarian Universalist congregation that has been the boldest and fiercest voice across the country, calling us to be more powerfully present, to be a force for courageous love, is Foothills Unitarian Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. And so I invite you, in the spirit of generosity, to give to our Share the Plate today. Half of it will go to our congregation, nourishing the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism right here in Rochester. And half will go to our siblings in Colorado who are more actively battling bills where they are than we are here in New York. Please give generously. Your offering will be received with humility and love.
For the
Thank you, choir, for that beautiful music. It's a tough act to follow, as is Reverend Shari's sermon reflection on generosity and stewardship. What exactly am I supposed to add, or need I add to that? But I know I can have us end well, set us up for a good closing. So I want to reflect a little bit for a moment on the closing words that we use every Sunday. We end with words from the Reverend Elizabeth Selly Jones. These are words that, although certainly not all Unitarian Universalist congregations, not even most, use it, but many do, including the church that I grew up at. And so to me, these words are personally meaningful. And they're, I think, a beautiful articulation of what Unitarian Universalism is and is about. So if you're not familiar, we'll say them in unison at the close, but they are, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And so I want to explore these in this context of generosity and stewardship. So the light of truth is that which is both the goal and the guide star of our search for meaning. It's the aspect of Unitarian Universalism that is above us or beyond us, wholly transcendent, even if also immanent in every place and time. The light of truth, our guide star. The warmth of community, then, is a more horizontal aspect. It's what's between us and generated by us all together every Sunday and every time we gather. It's that orientation of mutual support and recognition of our interdependence and of our living out the truth of that interdependence. And then the fire of commitment. This is the aspect within our own hearts. Fire, of course, is the chemical reaction of combustion. And so the fire of commitment is the reaction that happens almost chemically when our efforts, our intentions, and our actions find a spark with the needs of the world, with the needs of our community that we find ourselves in, with the needs of the present moment, thus creating a beautiful transformation that brings light, warmth, and energy to the world. So I want to consider each of these aspects in relationship to generosity, to the giving of tangible, material, financial support to the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism. So the light of truth, being that which is really real, it can never really be extinguished, right? It's truth with a capital T. But as has become increasingly clear in recent years, what a society considers true, what a government, what a media outlet, what an individual believes or understands to be true can be greatly warped by the exercise of power and wealth, particularly through what gets funded and what doesn't, like, say, education and science, or hatred and division. We live in a time of great economic inequality, and many of those at the top with unfathomable wealth and power, well, they're choosing to use their gifts to curse the world. They're spending a lot of money to deny and hide the truth about our interconnectedness as a whole peoples, as a whole planet, the truth about human industry's impact on the climate, the truth about the full and beautiful spectrum of human gender and sexuality, the truth about our nation's racist and supremacist and genocidal history, and the truth that we all could do so much good together and alleviate so much suffering if only we worked together for good. But instead, the powers of domination, division, and fascism are putting a lot of financial resources towards denying these truths and keeping those who would seek it and serve it down, oppressed, or irrelevant. And it's not just the facts that are suppressed, but the skills of science, the critical thinking, the information literacy that every citizen of the country needs, every citizen of the world needs. These are woefully underfunded and underdeveloped. And that isn't an accident. That is part of the larger strategy of keeping the truth down. And so when we say we won't extinguish the light of truth, let us remember that that doesn't just happen on its own. Part of what that means is using our own generosity to fight back against the forces of deception in the world, to counter the financing of hate with an investment in love and resistance, the building up of countercultural, truth-oriented ways of being together in community, of teaching comprehensive sex education to the next generation and to the current ones too, the maintenance of a pulpit dedicated to truth, both spiritual and scientific, though those aren't at odds, as you've heard me preach before. A pulpit both liberal and liberatory, both pastoral and prophetic. Be assured, the opponents of truth are well funded, is Unitarian Universalism. Now, on to the warmth of community. And I want to be clear with this one. There is a lot about inclusive and countercultural community that can be created by simply our human presence, just our words, just our caring for each other, and it doesn't involve money. But there is also plenty that does require money, at least as long as we live within capitalism and not the fully automated gay space communism imagined by Star Trek that I personally hope we get to, with its abolition of money and ability to instantly synthesize any food. Until we get there as a planet, and as Reverend Shari said, all flourishing is mutual. We only get there as a whole planet together. There are certain things that are essential to building community and creating warmth that do require financial resources. And food is a great example of them. There's a magic that happens when we break bread together in community, and feeding small, medium, large groups of people over the course of a church year, well, that takes money. The building that we are in, the container that keeps us warm and gives us a place of our own to meet and host events, and yes, generously welcome all those of good faith to come here and build community together, but also to be able to say there are certain behaviors that are outside the bounds, being able to create that safety for our own community. This all involves money being raised and spent in accordance with our mission. The horizontal bonds between us and among us don't exist just by themselves or without any effort. They rely on the generosity and giving of everyone in the community. Finally, the fire of commitment. Well, that's our own individual role to play in all this. It's our own active decision made every day to support the values we believe in, to choose to bless the world, to support the communities that we believe are changing lives, to seek and serve truth, to welcome and include both stranger and friend, to give generously of our time, talent, and treasure, knowing that while it takes all of us, not all of us are able to give all the time, and so little by little, and working together with others of like heart, we just might keep the lights on, by which I mean both the light of truth and the lights in the ceiling. So I hope this reflection deepens your relationship with our simple little three-part closing words, and that every Sunday these words will remind you and reaffirm your own commitment to this community, to this faith, to the great truth with a capital T, however you understand it. May you be inspired to ever greater beauty, service, generosity, and love, perhaps just as the Reverend Mary Catherine Morn was inspired by the chalice extinguishing words to write our closing hymn, The Fire of Commitment. Please rise now in voice, body, and spirit for hymn 1028.
Guiding minds and hearts and spirits into faith.
hope your most immediate future begins with sticking around for connections. We've got UU 101 happening. We've got Tech-Wise Parenting, if you're a parent interested in that. We've got a Soul Matters pop-up circle to kick off our muddy season with our theme of slogging with spirit. That's up in the Thoreau room upstairs. The young adults are meeting up. The Byfriars are meeting and sharing what they do and inviting people to join their work in caring for the maintenance of this building. We've got handbell choir and reproductive justice brainstorming to see what we can do to fight the good fight there. So please stick around, join one of those. The rooms will be listed on the screens afterwards. And now I invite you to join in the unison words to extinguish our flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We carry the fire of commitment in our hearts, but let us hang a sign to share our abundance. The gift of life and this community is not ours to hoard, but to share. The Byfriars, this group of people who join every other week, not because they are bisexual, but because they are every other week, care not at the assumption. The winds blow and the thunder roars, and the Byfriars hang a sign outside that says, "Welcome home." May the fire of commitment in your heart hang a sign. May you go out into the world giving from your abundance. May you love fiercely. Amen.